What was it about the farewell address, aside from the balance? You do a very elegant job of handling the military-industrial complex, but what was it about that speech that you thought was particularly relevant today?
Well, first that it took 1.5 years, almost 2 years, for him to...
Right. I was surprised by that, actually.
I mean, almost 2 years thinking about his ending message. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And 21 drafts. And he worked it and worked it and worked it. And as you know, it was your grandfather who, as a colonel, wrote for MacArthur. Yeah. And people don't know that. I mean, they think that his style in the news conferences was halting and all that stuff. But he was an eloquent writer and editor.
Yes, he was.
So his ability to be a wordsmith perhaps was much better than his ability to deliver it. But he could craft it, and he really took his time to craft this, which tells you how significant he thought that moment was. So it was not about his list of accomplishments. It was not about him. It was about a blueprint for America, his concerns and warnings about not only the military-industrial complex and foreign intervention, but deficit spending. Says we can't mortgage our children and grandchildren's future. I mean, how relevant is that today?
I love that line, by the way.
And I mean, if you look at that, again, you could deliver that today. Bipartisanship, you know, figure out what you can get done together before you argue about what you can't. And I think there were just a lot of messages that were not about him. If I may, one thing we didn't include in the book was Bob Kiev, who's a speechwriter.
Certainly.
Who's just brilliant, and we talked to him for the documentary. So he said, you know, at the time, obviously technology is where it was, and every draft had to be retyped by Secretary Ann Whitman. So she and your grandfather was editing all the time, and so she tried to preempt things by getting out to the speechwriters ahead of time. Well, Bob gave us this these letters in which, from Ann Whitman to Bob. First, do not use the word merit as a verb. Use it only as a noun. Second, never use the pronoun I at the beginning of 2 consecutive paragraphs. Third, this morning, a mild grumble from the boss on your using 2 adjectives. Warm best wishes. Bob, clearly you can make wishes warm or you can make them best, but you should not make them warm best. Fourth, never take it for granted that the president knows something about a national or local organization. Say, I'm happy to learn, or I understand that. Fifth, the construction of not only but also is fine, Bob, in its place. But please, Bob, not in every message. Please. Sixth, and this is the one I love, she had to retype a lot of these drafts on this one particular thing, and Ann says, look, Bob, every time you use the word appreciation, you follow it with the word for. Haven't you noticed that the boss consistently changes that to read appreciation of? So please, for my sake, for God's sake, Bob, when you use the word appreciation, never follow it with for, always follow it with of. Well, he goes back and forth and makes the argument to her, and she says, you know, I just looked at the president's appointment book, and I see he has some free time at 2:30 this afternoon. Would you like to come over and explain all of this to him? And he says, no. Bob Kiev is leaving the White House. He gets a picture signed by your grandfather. It says, to Robert S. Kiev, with best wishes and with lasting appreciation of valuable service in the White House. Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Oh, that's hysterical.
I mean, those kind of things are just precious, and that's why I love writing a book.